Brad was very excited about it. He kind of looks up and then he goes, "Ooh." Welcome to another zany episode of Nerdy West Coast Swing. I'm Cassie Winter.
Alicia Marshall.
Tonight, we are talking about passes. Left side passes, right side passes, underarm turns, basically anything that's not a push or a whip we're talking about tonight.
Well, kind of.
Kind of. Anyways, and we're also really, secretly, we're talking about posting. The video we want you all to watch tonight is from Jack and Jillorama 2018, Thibaut Ramirez and Cameo Cross. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Have at it. Let us know when you're done.
These dances have so many good recognizable basics.
Mm-hmm.
Like more than I normally see when we go through.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything you wanted to say before I do the screen share?
I don't know. Let me look. Basically, just that, like, we're going to be talking about passes, but really we're talking about posting, and we're just talking about it in the context of passes. Other than that, that's, I think, really all I need to say pre-video.
All right. So we were going to start off with one of these send-outs from the first song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just looking at this really gentle post. So, yeah, the main thing for this is really looking at Thibault's arm. Like it goes up over her head, and like we've talked about the connection aspect before, where as soon as something is done being over your head, you need to drop it back to get that connection. But he is very specifically not doing that. He's taking it slower. And that is because this is a slower song. And it's really not necessary for her to be back towards him so fast. So
the other thing that's really important is the fact that Thibaut is doing a delayed weight transfer.
mm-hmm.
And that's a really crucial element of a post from the leader's role. Because if Thibaut's body were to be completely vertical over his right foot at this point in time, it would take the handhold further down the slot and it wouldn't give Cameo any information that she needs to be stopping. And that's really what a post is. It's using the connection to start establishing stretch so that way the leader can communicate to the follow approximately where the end of the rope is.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked about it before plenty of times, just not in the context of saying that it is posting necessarily. I know that Cassie and I both hear a lot of people having issues with like posting, finding the connection. And I want to say that like a lot of times it's because one party thinks the other party should be doing something and they shouldn't. So what I mean by that is leads are the ones that are responsible for establishing the post, and follows are responsible for following through with it and looking for it at all times.
Yep.
A lot of times there's follows that don't look for the post, and so there's kind of a light, airy connection, like there's not much happening. Erin said, is there a count? The post is normally on, right?
Yes. So in a 6 count pattern, it's usually count 4.
Mm-hmm.
In an 8 count pattern, it's usually count 6.
Yep.
So basically the whole count before the triple step of the anchor.
Mm-hmm. Because in theory, the anchor is in place.
Yes, that is always the goal. However, one can float an anchor, which we will probably talk about later, because we should not spend the entire hour on this one pattern. Although we could if we wanted to.
Yeah, totally good. So I think that's most important thing to say about this specifically. We can move on to the next.
I know this one's technically an open whip. I just wanted to talk about how Tebow still creates a post. So he switches right to right here. And then as he steps forward onto his right foot, see how his hand is going forward with his right foot? So if we back up a little bit, his hand and foot are going forward together. And that's what's actually creating the post. So Cameo knows to stop traveling.
Yeah.
So really small interlude into whips there.
So I know I had marked coming out of this turn that I totally just blanked the name on.
Inside roll?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I literally said it earlier.
One of those nights.
Yeah.
Feels like one of those nights where you only have to say a word once for it to lose all meaning. It just turns into a jumble of sounds.
So looking at this here, we're kind of looking at Cameo more so than Tebow, but what I want to note is that Cameo is really looking for the post from him. So as soon as the hands move down, you can see that she is establishing connection as she's coming around. And she's doing that by the way that she is holding her arm in relation to where her body is at.
Yeah, she's really putting her right side of her body and her right shoulder into that connection. And that's how she's also able to communicate that she wants to do something a little bit more and add some time to the anchor. And then I also want to, oh, you go.
Okay, I was just going to say, so one of the ways that that post can be lost is when a follow comes around and doesn't keep like the shoulders back, doesn't keep the arm connected to the back. If she were to release right here instead of finding the post, it would end up a little bit messy, but then there wouldn't be able to be this like styling that she went into because she wouldn't have the leverage for it.
And then another way to think about that visually, what happens a lot is a follow will reach to step with their right foot. However, their right shoulder will be much closer to the leader.
Yeah.
And it's by having your right shoulder over the foot you're moving towards that actually creates that connection for the leader and helps actually give the leader connection into your back.
Yeah. And she's at an angle here, so it's a little bit harder to see, but she is planting that foot and shoulder in the same place.
Yep. It's just a delayed weight transfer, and that's why it might not look like that's what she's doing, but it is.
So, moving on. So you can create posts by having either stretch or compression when you come around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And here Thibaut is creating stretch, but actually the way that he is going into it, I would maybe expect a little bit more compression just because of that angle of his body.
I'm curious now. I'm analyzing myself. Yeah, it's really subtle, but because he's going to the left here and driving down line and he's catching here, that makes it stretch. But if he had driven his left side forward into this position faster, he could have created compression.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, basically. Like the way that he's angling into it.
Yeah.
Is normally what you see when there's a compression post.
Mm-hmm. Because
you really need that inward from the left side from a leader's perspective. And because he's stepping at an angle with his body, with his left side so much further forward.
Yeah, and then the other thing as a leader to facilitate compression instead of tension for a post is to make sure you accelerate the follow so their right shoulder does a complete U-turn and comes back towards you. Mm-hmm. Whereas here, Cameo is still traveling down line. She's not coming back towards him. And that's how it ends up in tension and not compression. Mm-hmm. But it is a slightly accelerated underarm turn. Yeah. It's just not accelerated so much that it encourages compression at the other side. Mm-hmm. And I just want to add, because I did just say it's slightly accelerated, the way Thibaut is creating that is by moving contra to her. He's traveling down line in opposition of her. Mm-hmm. And that is what is accelerating the pattern. Well, I just noticed because you talked a lot about how Estelle used her free arm for like internal preps. Cameo's doing a similar thing right here. She's swinging her left arm down and across, which creates an internal prep, which allows for the accelerated rotation back to the left.
Cameo is a more exaggerated version of Estelle.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I wanted to say was talk about the floating post here, because they're traveling down line once they get past their post.
Yep. So here's the post. So it travels both down line, but also shifts slots to the side. So post, and then it starts floating. But they are in tension while it's floating.
Right. Do you want to talk about like the issues with floating post?
Sure. So a floating post is still a post. That's the part that seems to get lost in translation a lot. Mm-hmm. And my experience is people who try to move the post end up completely dissolving their connection altogether. But what happens is you still establish a post like normal. And then as a leader, you make sure to maintain that level of connection, if not grow it, while you're encouraging the follow to continue traveling. Mm-hmm. So at this point in time, they have a stretch connection. And through the rest of this extended anchor styling, they are still in tension
Yeah.
the whole time, even though they're moving in this direction on the floor. Long story short, a floating post is still a post.
Mm-hmm.
End rant.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's something that I feel like happens just with like regular posting as well, as when like you get a post initially, but then it just disappears.
Yep. It's like, here, I want you to stop here. No lies, keep going.
Yep.
Now we're going the other way.
Yep.
Or it's like, as a follow, you're like, where do I stop? Where do I stop? Where do I stop? Where do I stop? Oh, we're going the other way.
Yep.
Or it happens to me all the times, like, where do I stop? Where do I stop? Where do I stop? Oh, can we stop already? And then I pay attention. It's like, oh, you wanted me to go the other way already? You're funny. Anyways.
Yeah, that's something that happens. A lot of leads will do that even when they're not trying to float the post. They kind of like unintentionally float it, but then also not really.
Yep.
So it ends up moving, but not in any kind of connection.
Yeah, they're there in spirit.
Mm. And one thing I'll say about that is that, like, when there isn't a post, or a clear post at least, or when there's one that establishes and then just kind of disappears, from a follows perspective, it's a lot harder to do stylings, and it's also a lot harder to trust your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Because
and it's also a lot harder to redirect yourself.
Yes. A lot of stylings come from like altering the connection in some sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
Like that leverage, especially.
Yeah, I know personally, I play so much more if I have a strong connection and a leader who's posting for me.
Mm-hmm. And it's also one of those things where, like, personally, if I am following someone that is inconsistent with it, I won't play around with it. I won't like expect them to do something. Like, even if they are sometimes, I just play along like I'm not expecting it.
Yep.
So then my stylings, are very different. Erin said tips for establishing a strong post.
Delayed weight transfer.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually did a whole month on that last month in our Patreon, in super depth. Yeah. So the trick is that count 4 of a 6 count or count 6 of an 8 count, you're delaying your weight transfer, and you actually let the follow kind of create your weight transfer for you. So you're like resisting your weight transfer, and the follow is making you shift over your foot. Mm-hmm. Also shaping depending on the pattern. Yeah. So like if we go back to the post on this underarm turn, for example, Tebow is a quarter turn to the left of the slot. So he's shaping to his left to create that post. So he's actually using the shape of his body and his frame to create strength in the connection without having to use a lot of muscle. Yeah. Because we were just talking about how important it is as a follow to have a leader who posts strongly so we can play and enjoy ourselves. And it's the same thing from a leader's perspective. If I create posts that the follow does not engage with and use and add weight to the connection, I'm not going to play as much myself, and I'm going to do less with that follow. Mm-hmm. If I have a follow who's really engaging with my posts and adding to the connection and adding weight to it, I have more that I can do with them confidently and safely. Yeah. And I can be so much more creative.
I mean, having a strong post is arguably one of the most important parts in connection and understanding the way that it works.
Yep. We kind of talked about this a little earlier, but I want to talk a little bit more about posting after a turn. Mm-hmm. Because it's really important that you don't apply the brakes as a leader until the follows frame is in a safe position.
Mm-hmm.
So here, for example, if Tebow were to suddenly go, that would murder her shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
If he did it here, that would murder her shoulder. But if he does it here, when it's back in front of her and she's back to a normal, like, home base frame, it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he's able to then do this, because they had connection and he was able to initiate a release of that connection. So he posted here really strongly, so she knew to stop. And then he was able to release it into a face loop really safely.
Mm-hmm.
Her strategic use of eye contact in this dance is just so good.
I know, it's wonderful.
It's excellent. Never underestimate eye contact.
So I think what I wanted to talk about here specifically is, once again, that more gentle post that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not one that is being established super early in the send out.
I don't know. I might actually disagree with you on that. Because he starts moving in contra on 2. So he leaves the 1 here. And he starts shifting back to his right on 2. So there's already a little bit of a post.
Yeah.
At that point in time. So what else did you want to say about this pattern?
I think that was basically it. I really wanted to just point out how gentle it is, and just how, like, Cameo specifically isn't like going into any type of strong connection right away.
Yeah, I think basically because Tebow is moving in contra on 2, it ends up being a gradually building post.
Yeah.
So there's like a tiny bit of post here.
Exactly.
And the stretch grows and it grows.
And that's basically what I meant earlier.
Gotcha.
Probably should have worded it differently.
See, what I said would happen would happen. If we ever disagree, we're going to be like, oh, I see what you mean. And we create a bridge. And that's literally what just happened. I predict the future. Nah. But yeah, so he starts creating the post early on count 2, but it's gentle.
Right. It's not like a strong post initially.
Yeah, it grows gently over time.
Yeah. So I believe what I wanted to say is that this one is establishing a post earlier. And he is using the arm to redirect and send her down line, but it's not really strong. So it's not adding a ton of momentum for her. So then they can get into this early post right here. And you can see that. So loud? I don't know. But you can see that Cameo can still have that resisted release and move back even.
Yeah, and Tebow does something that I really appreciate from leaders. It's twofold. So after he initiates Cameo's movement down line, the way he releases this prep right here is super important. He releases it not only towards us in the camera, but back to where she started from. So if you watch the hand, it comes toward us and then it goes back. And what that's doing is basically redirecting Cameo's momentum ever so slightly, so it negates some of the momentum down line. So she's less inclined to go this way now than she was on her count 1, if that makes sense. And then he's leaving his hand out there and basically encouraging her to come into his forearm with her rotation. And so there's actually some lateral connection this way into his forearm right now. So there's a lot of compression in his forearm and wrist against her waist.
Yeah.
And just like in a push break or a sugar push, the release of energy is what allows the follow to spring away after the compression. So he doesn't really have to push very hard. Like he could if he wanted to create a very sudden post out the other end. Which is an option. It's a thing. I know I've done it. It's fun. But it's for different purposes. But the way he does it here is he just lets this compressed spring that he's created in the connection right here just release itself and resolve itself.
Yeah.
Which is what allows her to have a nice gentle exit out of that into a gentle post.
Yeah. Oh, I also want to say that this is what we were looking at last week with Estelle and Chris. That where he didn't catch quite far enough. So this is the same thing that he was going for.
All right, here's the next one I had marked. Let me know if you wanted to talk about it.
I mean, he has more of a gentle post in this one as well.
It's actually very similar mechanics to what we just did, or what we just talked about, where he releases. So here's the prep. He's prepped her to her right. He releases it towards him and then back down line in the direction of where she came from. So she kind of like gets sucked back into his shoulder pocket. And right here, I want to say, because this is a thing that drives me bonkers, is the hand connection here is more of an accessory. It's like a backup, but the main connection right here is his forearm across her upper back.
Yeah.
Not her neck. Very important. Not her neck.
Yes.
I will get very violent with anyone who does this to my neck.
And I want to add that the reason that you don't want to go for the neck there is more space to connect with if you're going for the upper back. So you can create a stronger connection and a stronger spring out of that release.
Yep. And
I think that made sense, what I just said.
Yes. So not only is not connecting with the neck safer, but it is actually more helpful. And so he's built up a lot of compression from his forearm across her upper back, and then it gets released. And so she is just resolving that compression through the end, which is more rotational based. So she knows she doesn't have to travel very far because she's resolving a rotational lead instead of a linear one.
Yep.
Oh, I knew this episode was going to get nerdy, but I'm surprising even myself. True to brand, people.
Yep.
So I just wanted to mention this one. It's a whip similar to what I mentioned earlier in passing, where Thibaut is bringing the hand back in the direction of where Cameo came from to create a post. So there's a lot of tension in this handhold that he can spring off of to create his own rotation. Which is really important. And then I just wanted to do this in slow-mo because Cameo just kills this moment.
Yeah. Aaron said, thumbnail that
good.
face about Tebow. But yes, Cameo does a great job of working with that momentum and styling it as well.
Yeah, because this is one of those moments where, like we were talking about earlier, how really strong connection facilitates dancing. And you
Mm-hmm.
can see how Tebow is using it to really create this really great accelerated rotation right there, which is also creating an accelerated stretch connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cameo takes that strong connection to support herself into these really fun shapes and pivots that would have been very hard to do if she just tried to do it on her own.
Mm-hmm.
But she was using the connection to make it really easy.
Yep. And that's one of those things that like just really depends on having that post, like her being able to style that. A lot of times if you have momentum, if you have momentum and you get released and in a similar fashion, there's a lot of follows specifically that won't do anything with that. And that's partially because maybe that post wasn't created correctly to go into it, and then there was just a lot of momentum suddenly.
Mm-hmm. Tebow is doing such an amazing job of maintaining that post for her. Because, if you just look at him right now, awkward. Not gonna lie, this is awkward. Like, what is this? But nobody cares because we're all staring at Cameo. But he's in that position so that way she has this post to work off of. So she didn't have to change the length of her frame as she danced this moment.
Yeah. Andrew said non-posting related, but he's creating a ton of space whenever he leads a rotation. Yes, yes.
Yes, very important. And I'm also going to say the last thing I said again because it's like super important. Tebow is maintaining the post in such a way throughout this moment while Cameo is playing, such that she does not have to change the length of her frame.
Yep. And you can even see like he does a really good job of keeping that arm in place when he's moving.
Yeah.
Even though he's moving in towards that, he's not letting it go with him.
It's almost identical to the underarm turn that we went through later, but it's the second song.
Yep.
And this is like how precise you can be with your technique. Like, I really appreciate that Tebow has that consistency, and I know he has the power to change it at will. What is going on?
Something.
Anyways, as I was saying, so Tebow has that technique to be consistent. He also has the power to change it at will, depending on what he wants to do. But anyways, sidebar. Practice your basics.
Yeah, this was the one that I wanted to point out how much he is not moving his arm, even though he's creating like a switched type of pass.
Yeah, where it's more trading places. So he's lifting it up and crossing it to the other side of the slot so it's comfortable for her while moving in contra. And this is the one where different to what it was earlier. They hit it enough that it comes into just a little bit of compression right here, because their right sides have rotated back around towards each other. Mm-hmm. So it's probably not a very heavy compression.
No.
It's just very light, but it is there. And then it transitions back into tension right here, where you can see how they start shifting their right, Cameo's right shoulder and Tebow's left shoulder away from each other right there. That was them reestablishing stretch. Mm-hmm. One more.
Yeah, I think this is the one that was in comparison to the one that happened.
Oh, hey. Yeah, because it's on the other side. You're so helpful, Tebow.
But I wanted to note with this that there's more momentum happening in this. There's a lot more traveling that they're doing. They're like, going a lot larger distance.
Yeah.
That was a weird sentence. Anyways.
Yay, English. Yeah, no. So here, this is fun. So he preps Cameo here, and then we can watch as the hand goes a little bit back towards where she went. Mm-hmm. But there's so much momentum going into this, he would have had to add more intention to that lead to have her go back this way as she rotates.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that. So what ends up happening, go away, Arrow, is she gets a little bit of compression on the side of her waist. But instead of there being enough compression that it just releases naturally, like happened before, Tebow has to continue driving his right side through.
Yeah.
As she continues to turn.
Right. And that's just creating a lot of extra momentum for Cameo to deal with. And, you can see that because the large steps that she's taking prior to when he's catching her. So she already has quite a bit of momentum going because of that. Then when he's connecting with her and adding to that, there's just so much momentum to deal with there that, they're not catching that post as early as they did on the other one. Mm-hmm. They're almost in, not full extension, but they've moved quite a ways away from each other at this point. Well, Cameo's moved away from him. And earlier we were looking at, they were kind of catching when they were very close.
This one. So he's really inviting her to negate her traveling momentum right there. And he doesn't have to drive through with his right side as much. He just used his forearm as a guardrail as the compression was resolving. Mm-hmm. Whereas, go back to where we were. Right here, there's just so much momentum that he doesn't ask her to negate it.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to. It's just a variation on the pattern.
Yeah.
And he has to drive through a little bit more with his right side. Cool. I think that's everything.
Yep, I think so.
Any questions, comments, bad jokes? I keep waiting. Y'all need to come prepared with the bad jokes. It needs to be a thing.
Other than that, we have a really exciting episode next week.
Bryn Anderson! So excited.
I will do my darnest to be there. This is going to be hilarious.
Oh, Robert Crocker says, what do you call a hippie's wife? I don't know. What do you call a hippie's wife?
Can't leave us hanging, bro.
Don't leave us hanging. Mississippi.
Yeah, that was good. That was a great note to end on.
So good. Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Yes, thank you all so much. Come back next week. It's going to be shenanigans. So excited. It's actually going to be Bryn's 21st birthday in the time of COVID. And I think it's safe to say that we have some surprises for her birthday that she is unaware of.
Mm-hmm.
So shh. I doubt she's going to watch this replay, so I think it's safe for y'all to know.
Everyone else is fine to know, it's just not her.
Yeah, just don't tell her. Anyways, I think she also has a fundraiser on Facebook going. If anybody feels like contributing to that, one of the Facebook birthday fundraiser things. So feel free to Facebook stalk her and throw some money at it if you're inclined. Yeah. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Hi. Also, I just want to point out another beautiful freeze frame from Christopher Dumond, like last week. As requested, that silly face of his ended up on the thumbnail.
Oh, so good.
Oh, yay, the camera actually went to you this week. It didn't last week.
I know.
It's just like your voice is really weird. Anyways, Emma's probably out roller skating.
I know. That's what I was thinking about.
Sounds good. All right, to the screen share. Hopefully it will not echo my voice on the first try again. Like it's done the past 2 weeks for no reason. Okay.
Yeah.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Am I echoing?
Not to me.
Yes!
I don't think so.
Hallelujah. Okay. It's a miracle. Yeah. And then what's oh no. Hopefully stopping and restarting it.
No. I don't know.
I'm gonna share the screen again, and if it still keeps doing, wait, did it stop? What is happening?
You know what? At least it's working for us at the moment.
I know. We couldn't have our
meeting.
Tuesday meeting because it was so bad.
It was so bad. Like, could not get any full sentences out before it froze.
Ryan is like the definition of relaxed right now.
And then Chris next to him looks the exact opposite of that.
I know. He's in that, like, I saw a ghost pose that Austin was in the video last week.
Yes, he is. I wanted to, sorry. I had a thing I wanted to say, and then Aaron asked such an excellent question. Then I was like, ooh, shiny. And then like, what the fuck did I want to say before? Anyways, I remembered now. So he's catching intention, in space tension. The way I said it the first time, it sounded like I said the word intention. And I'm like, Quite the same.
Look at us being on the same page. Basically, the project management software we use didn't like sync in time. So when I was making bookmarks this morning, I didn't realize that Alicia had made notes. So I just bookmarked the shit that I wanted to talk about. And lo and behold, we want to talk about most of the same things.
Yeah.
Can you hear my boyfriend through
Yeah.
my mic? Okay. I'm going to message him and tell him to close the door.
I literally looked to see if anyone was unmuted. So I was like, what is that?
Apparently his sister, who lives in Montreal, has finagled him into playing a game online with her tonight. Some sort of RPG kind of shenanigans that is anime. It's like you're playing anime. That's how he pitched it to me. And I'm like, that sounds like a lot. When he gets excited and into things, he's loud.
Yeah.
My voice goes 1 inch. His can fill a stadium.
Yeah. This is why I always feel like I yell when I teach in person.
Can you hear me in the
Normal voice is right here. Nothing past it.
It's like I have the ability to project, but I would immediately pass out afterwards. So I choose not to most of the time.